For many years, watermen have been fishing the diverse waters of the Chesapeake Bay. Calinectes sapidus, or the blue crab, is one of the bay's keystone species. They're extremely important to the bay's economy and ecology. Alas, today these beautiful swimmers are in danger. In the 1990s, the crab population began to drop. By 2000, the crab population had declined by over 400 million. What is causing this decline, and what can we do? The blue crab is one of the most important species in the Chesapeake Bay. It is an indicator species, which means that if it is doing well, the bay is doing well. The blue crab is a main food source for many animals. The crab is very important to the economy. Chesapeake Bay blue crabs are shipped worldwide. If the population of the blue crab drops, that means fewer blue crabs to sell, which can be bad for the economy. The Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the United States. Its watershed stretches from New York to Virginia. Anything that affects the rivers or streams in the watershed will eventually affect the bay. Climate change is a big factor. When a storm occurs, mudslides and storm surges can happen and will wash huge amounts of mud into the bay. As the NASA satellite picture indicates, large storms can have bay-wide consequences and may affect crab populations. Temperature and weather can negatively affect the blue crabs as well.
Climate change is really about water. It's about aging water and wastewater treatment facilities that end up overstressed and flooded during all these extreme weather events. It's about mudslides. It's about storm surges from pounding rains. And it's about sewers that both back up and overflow. It's about inadequate stormwater systems that let pollution attack sensitive ecosystems like our wetlands and our estuaries that threaten our fish and our wildlife. It's about all these impacts adding up, spoiling the beauty and vitality of some of this country's most iconic water bodies.
Runoff into the bay caused by storms and other extreme events has been a huge problem for many years. Chemical fertilizers from farmers' fields wash into the bay and contaminate the water. Also, animal manure with nitrogen in it greatly harms the bay. According to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, runoff from farmers' fields is the largest source of pollution to the bay. Work zones dumping suburban and urban hardscapes and garden and lawn fertilizers also contribute to the fouling of the bay. Another factor is pharmaceuticals, which enter the bay through landfills and leaching. These pollutants all contaminate the water. They create unsafe living conditions for the flora and fauna that live there. Once fertilizers enter the bay, they do not lose their effectiveness.
A lot of people use fertilizers, on their lawns. Nitrogen, phosphorus, used to be a lot of phosphorus in soap detergent, clothes detergent, which washed into the bay when it would rain, and that causes algae to bloom. Well, the algae love that. It's like popcorn for them or candy. And they bloom, and then the algae die, and the bacteria eat them, and the bacteria use up all the oxygen in the water. That's called eutrophication. So if the oxygen is low, the blue crabs have a hard time surviving.
Dead algae also block out sunlight. Both of these factors create a dead zone where no other plants or animals can live. Submerged aquatic vegetation, or SAV, is vital to the blue crab. Juveniles will hide in these grasses until they are old enough to protect themselves, and so will molting crabs. When the algae block out the sun, the SAVs can't grow. This means fewer hiding places for the crabs, leaving them at risk of predation. The crabs are also affected directly by the dead zones, because with no oxygen in the water, they can't breathe. Extreme weather events, like hurricanes, can also decimate the SAV flats in the Chesapeake.
It's called SAV, submerged aquatic vegetation, and we don't have much. In 1972, there was a huge hurricane called Agnes that completely decimated the grasses, underwater grasses. because so much silt washed into the bay, it blocked out the sunlight, and the grasses couldn't grow. They needed sunlight for photosynthesis. Whereas in the lower bay, they didn't have that major hurricane, and it's a different salinity. And they have grasses there that are doing fairly well, although a couple years ago, the hot summer killed on quite a few of the grasses. But blue crabs move back into the bay from the ocean after they're hatched, or their broods are released. And they probably spend a month out in the ocean where they feed and grow, and then they move back in the bay and stay in seagrasses till they're about 1/4 inch wide if you measure them from spine to spine. And then once they're about 1/4 inch, they start moving up into different tributaries of the bay. And they'll come all the way up here and even further up towards the Susquehanna River.
The blue crab is preyed on by many animals. Fish, birds, mammals, and even other crabs all consider them to be a source of food. With the disappearance of the SAV, predators find it easier to catch crabs when they are unable to defend themselves. But these aren't the only problems affecting the blue crabs. Every year, female crabs make a journey to the lower bay to spawn in the higher salinity water. The eggs must have the saltier water to make it to adulthood. However, many females are caught on their journey and are unable to lay eggs. Male crabs are also caught every year in huge numbers. Between 1968 and 2005, the annual crab harvest was averaged at 73 million pounds.
A lot of people, the new generation, think, oh, this is terrible, this is the first time this has ever happened, but I say that's the worst it's ever been in 50 years, but you can talk to any old timer, 75 years old or something, and they tell you the same story. When we got out of school, or I quit school when I was 10, and it was all you could do to catch a bushel of crabs. It ain't like they were always crawling out of the Chesapeake Bay. It's got its ups and downs. It's just, what they say, it comes in cycles. You have good years and bad years.
Non-profit organizations and communities are participating in projects to raise awareness and to protect the Chesapeake Bay. In Pennsylvania, farmers are participating in the Chesapeake Bay Foundation's Buffer Bonus Program, where they will plant tree buffers and install other conservation projects to keep livestock out of streams. By the end of 2013, there were 300 completed projects in Lancaster County alone. In 2012, a record number of juvenile blue crabs was recorded during the annual Winter Dread Survey, 3 times the number of the previous year. That crabbing season, however, the adult crab commercial harvest was 56 million pounds, an 11 million pound decrease from 2011. Some blame this decrease on predation or reduced SAV. Others believe that it was due to the weather. The cool spring of 2012 might have been a factor because the crabs wouldn't have time to grow properly. Experts say that it was most likely a combination of all these reasons. The state governments are also working to protect the crabs. When the Maryland and Virginia governments realized that blue crabs were being overfished, they put regulations into effect to try and save this important species. In Maryland, recreational crabbers are required to throw all females that they catch back into the water. And in Virginia, watermen aren't allowed to dredge in the winter. Many believe that these regulations have helped the crab population to rise, but others disagree.
All it's done is made more rules, made it more complicated. It used to be a 5-inch crab for over 100 years, or way before my time that was the legal size, and now it's 5 1/4, a 1/4 inch longer. I mean, what's it going to help? It's nothing. It's just another rule and just something else that costs money to change the rules. More enforcement. They could have just left it 5 inches and just stuff like that. It's kind of frustrating when you're a waterman.
Picture the Chesapeake Bay, teeming with life. No chemicals or algae blooms to be found. This is an ecosystem that is being well protected for the blue crab and all of the other animals living there. But this is the future. We must protect this ecosystem now, or it will fall prey to the effects of climate change. With the combination of crabbing, decreased SAV, predation, and chemical fertilizer runoff, crabs have it pretty rough. If we work to save blue crabs in the bay, that imagined future will become reality.